RMJ Movie Reviews back again, people, and I'm coming with a October holiday, whatever you want to call it, horror movie review. And I told you guys before that I'm gonna do one movie from each franchise or some other obscure horror movie, but I'm not gonna go through like the whole series because there's too many movies to go through. I don't feel like doing it. So I choose a personal favorite from each franchise, of which I said before I'm gonna choose Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. From 1986. Jason Lives is really, I have fond memories. Excuse me, people. 1 second. Oops, sorry, somebody sent me a text message. So, as I said, I have a lot of very fond memories with Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, as I do with all the Friday the 13th movies from 1 through 8, the Paramount Friday the 13th pictures, which I consider those the real Friday the 13th movies. Everything that came afterwards, nah. But I can still distinctly remember I had seen Friday the 13th Part 6. And actually, I had saw the first Friday the 13th movie I ever saw. I saw it in the 80s. The first one I actually saw was the final chapter, Part 4. And I remember my older brother had rented it from the video store. This was like when final chapter freshly came to the video store. And I can't remember the name of this video store we went to. It was like a no-name video store because there was a lot of mom and pop chains back in the 80s for some of you guys who weren't born then. And they had a big poster outside with little lights around it, and they had a popcorn machine, and you saw the final chapter poster with Jason's mask and that knife going through the eye with the puddle of blood below the mask. And, that was the first Friday I'd ever seen. And that was before 5 had come out. And then pretty much I had seen them in order as they came out. So then the next year I saw 5 when it came on video. And then this one, number 6, I had actually seen my first cousin's birthday party, which I'm not sure if this was of 87. I think this might have been 1987, so it might have been the next year, but it was before The New Blood came out. And my aunts were so cool that they invited a bunch of us, some of my other cousins and some of my first cousin's friends, and we all spent the night. We had our pajamas on, our WWF pajamas. Remember, this is the 80s, guys. Hulk Hogan and Roddy Piper was on our pajamas. And from the video store, they rented it. And we had some popcorn, and we watched Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. And then after, I think New Blood had just come on video at the time. And then I went back and doubled back and saw 1, 2, and 3. Before I had seen The New Blood. And then pretty much I had saw New Blood and then Jason Takes Manhattan. But, I have fond memories of Jason Lives. I remember one of the things that always struck me about it was how, I don't know, Jason was just really cool in this movie. And not that I didn't think that he was cool in the other ones. At the time I was only, I think, 6 or 7 maybe. That's how cool my aunts were. That they showed a bunch of 6 or 7-year-olds Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. But, and none of us were scared by it. We were just entertained by it. But I remember how cool I just thought Jason was in this movie. He was just really, really, really cool. Just the fact that through the whole movie he's twisting people's heads on backwards and stuff. And I just really have fun. I always love the opening. After, Jason gets resurrected from the grave and then he turns around and the camera goes closer to his eye. He walks in like James Bond and he slices the camera and the blood spurts out and it says, Jason Lives. I mean, I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world. It's just, I really genuinely do think that Jason Lives is a good movie. I think it's only marred by the fact that it has the Friday the 13th name in the title. I think if it was honestly just a horror picture and it wasn't Jason, but it was some other killer and it didn't have the Friday the 13th name, I really think people would have cut it a lot more slack. But, it's kind of interesting. Like, if you happen to see it on cable channels or something, I mean, you'll usually see like 1 star, 1.5 star, something like that. People are really hard on this franchise. But I've always loved, and I've always also loved the artwork, the cover. They don't have, that cover doesn't circulate too much anymore. You kind of have to find it on the internet. But at the time, at the video store, they had that really cool poster of like Jason's mask at the graveyard, and you see the light flashing behind the mask onto the Jason Lives headstone, and then you could just see this bright light. That was the coolest poster in the world. I have been trying to forever find what is it, the 27 by whatever, one of the really big huge ones. I've been trying to find one. I can't find one anywhere. I've only been able to find the really tiny ones. But I've been trying to find like all the really cool artwork, poster work from the classic franchises from the 70s and 80s. I found Nightmare on Elm Street 1, where Heather Landon kept it in the knives over the eyes. That one's really cool. I own that one, the big version of it. But I've been trying to find that one. But I just really have a lot of fond memories. Friday the 13th Part 6 has always been my favorite of the franchise. Now, rewatching the movie now as an adult at 34 years old, I still think it holds up pretty good. The one thing I noticed watching it, just because I hadn't seen it all the way through in a really long time, I will say the death scenes are pretty tame, especially really in comparison to all the reboots and remakes and Saws and Hostile movies we got coming out now. I mean, you could watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning or The Hills Have Eyes 2006 remake, and it just, woof, those are miles more violent. As a matter of fact, the actor who stars as the sheriff in the movie, David Kagan, he even said in an interview on the special features for this movie, he said that, you know, the movie they did is way more tamer in comparison to what's coming out nowadays. I thought it was interesting he said that. And how the actors were really kind of torn about doing a movie like this. How does this kind of stuff affect people? But, I mean, if you watch Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives now, like, if I was to show this movie to my nieces and nephews who are, like, in their late teens, early 20s, I mean, they'd probably hysterically laugh at it. You know what I mean? Which is different for me because I saw it when it was brand new. And at the time, the death scenes in this movie were pretty hardcore. I mean, like him twisting the girl's head on backwards, him pulling the dude's heart out and breaking the sheriff's back. I mean, that was hardcore stuff back then. When you look at it now, it's kind of like it's not really that gory, you know. But also, what I really love about the movie is there really is a lot of artistry in Part 6 as far as the cinematography and the lighting. There's a lot of action setups in this, you know, the trailer flipping over, the fist fight in the boat at the end with the fire and underwater, this little car chase with the sheriff's daughter, particularly the stuff at the graveyard in the beginning with the lighting and the rain and the flash of lighting. There's a lot of texture and craftsmanship in this movie, probably a lot more than there even should have been. There's a lot of high production values here on this movie. And also, too, the characters are likable. I mean, yes, they're stock teenage 80s, you know, slasher victims. You know, in particular, a lot of the actors in this thing look a lot like my sisters, especially particularly the girls in this, look a lot like my sister's friends. They almost look exactly like how my sister's friends used to, the hair and the clothes, the way they used to look back then in the 80s with the poofy hair and stuff, and you know, fond memories there. But I also like the fact that the actors are likable. I love the humor, you know, because this was number 6. I mean, pretty much after number 5, it was out of gas. But they were able to really put the artistry into it with the production designs and really have a wink. But what I love is there's a wink, but there's a wink because they're ignorant to the fact that Jason is alive and he's real and he's on a killing rampage. You know, so that's a really cool part about the movie. And I'm trying to think, what else do I like? I pretty much hit all the beats. Really, Harry Manfredini's score, he made number one, really it's 1 through 6. I don't think he really worked on 7. I think they just took like some of his music from the other ones and plugged them in. And the guy who did Friday the 13th, the television series, added his music. So it was both of their music for number 7. Number 8, he was out. But Harry Manfredini, classic score. You know, he did the original 1985 Hills Have Eyes Part 2. He did House with Steve Miner, which I think I'm going to review probably for the month of October. I love that movie too. Those movies, the Friday the 13th from the 80s, would be nothing without Harry Manfredini's score. And even here, it's kind of beefed up. It's a little bit more action-y, you know what I mean? Kind of when they're looking for Jason's grave at the beginning of the movie, and the music goes da-dun, dun, dun, da-dun, dun, 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 dun. And then at the end where they're fighting on the boat, dun 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 dun. I mean, it's oh man, it just when you hear that music and then the I mean, when you hear that, especially for particularly people who are my age and like in older, you know it's the Friday the 13th movie. Even like the kids who were born in the early 90s and later. I mean, they may not know it's particularly a Jason movie, but they know it's something. You know, they might say, "Oh, it's Freddy." You know, they'll get it wrong. They don't know. But you know, I mean, the music is really good. This is a spectacular sequel. The fact that Tom McLaughlin was able to even come up with this is a wonderfully, and I think it's a wonderfully crafted movie. I think it's very well done. You know, I just think it won't get respect because it's a 6th sequel and it's got the Friday the 13th title. But there was actually a lot of care put into this movie, a lot more than Part 5. Although I like Part 5, I respect it for kind of... Yeah, I'll talk about Part 5 another day. But I like Part 5. I will admit that I listened to the commentary for this movie. And one of the actors, I think he plays the Italian gentleman. I forget his Vincent Castiglione, I think is his name. I'll be wrong. Don't kill me, guys. But he said in the commentary how he liked that kind of the deaths in this movie were handled a little bit more kind of in a over-the-top movie-ish kind of way versus Part 5 where it was kind of more disgusting, was his exact words he used, was more disgusting. Which I'd agree that Part 5 is a little bit more of an icky movie than this one. This movie is kind of a little bit more polished, classier, if you could use that word, than Part 5. You know, there's a lot more craftsmanship put into this. So, geez, oh, and also, how could we forget Alice Cooper's wonderful rock 80s soundtrack? What would a 1980s movie be without some kind of MTV? MTV actually showed music videos at the time, kids. Without some kind of MTV plug-in, you know, and the man behind the mask, I think it's Teenage Frankenstein. I don't know if he did that other song called Hard Rock Summer, I think played during the car chase. I don't know, he might have done all 3 of those songs. I know he definitely did the man behind the mask. But, you know, that just adds to the cheese, you know. Just a cheesy 1980s movie, and it's fun. If anything, if my only really complaint about watching Jason 6 or Friday 6 after all these years sitting all the way through it, it's definitely, I just think the deaths are just really just kind of tame, and they're really just, like, short. In comparison, like, if you watch something like, especially Final Chapter, or even 3, you know what I mean? The deaths are pretty tame in this. But, you know, Jason's still cool. You know, I love his utility belt with his, you know, he's got his little daggers and he's got his machete and he's got his Rambo knife on his hip. You know, cool stuff. It's a fun movie. A lot of 80s cheese. A lot of fond memories. I used to rent this thing from the video store all the time back in the day. I've rambled on as much as I can about Jason Lives. The review's gone on too long. So I'm going to wrap it up, people. And I'll be coming with another movie review. I'm probably going to come with another horror picture. I don't know what it's going to be right now. But guys, share your thoughts on Friday Part 6. You know, my opinions on it. Like my video, subscribe to my channel, leave some comments below. For those of us, let's share some memories about renting this from the video store back in the day, or the first time you saw Friday 6 or any one of the Paramount movies. Let's talk, guys. RMJ Movie Reviews. I'll see you soon.